TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. The IDF concludes a multi-corps exercise simulating October 7-like scenarios, among others, in the Judea, Samaria, and Jordan Valley districts. Israel and the United States are respectively evaluating a Plan B for the Gaza Strip in the event that President Trump's 21-point plan fails. And U.S. Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio says that unless Washington grants Damascus a chance, Syria may plunge into a new civil war. The IDF has completed a multi-corps exercise in the West Bank districts of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, an exercise that was said to be a first of its kind, in which two fully manned divisions operated together in close cooperation and operational coordination alongside the Israeli Air Force, the IDF Intelligence Directorate, ISA, Israel Police, and other operational units. During the exercise, the troops trained in over 40 scenarios, with the Israeli Air Force providing aerial support to the troops on the ground. The exercise incorporated lessons learned from October 7th of 2023, including initial strikes, recognizing the critical impact of early response, rapid readiness, deployment of special forces, and full mobilization of IDF troops. Meanwhile, IDF Chief of General Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, visited the exercise, during the course of which he stressed the importance of the IDF's preparedness and highlighted that the scenarios that had been drilled in recent days include scenarios that the Israel Defense Forces must aim to prevent to neutralize threats before they reach Israel's doorstep, which is the IDF's duty. Turning to the city of Bethlehem, where a joint IDF, ISA, and Israel police operation successfully dismantled a Hamas terrorist stronghold from which terrorists operated in the Bethlehem area and planned to carry out shooting attacks against Israeli civilians and security forces. The forces conducted more than 15 different operations, some of which were undercover and conducted in broad daylight, during the course of which the IDF apprehended more than 50 suspected terrorists who were later transferred to the ISA for further questioning. It is important to highlight that the Israeli forces confiscated multiple weapons and munitions. Turning to the Gaza Strip, where the United States is drafting a new resolution aimed at gaining an international mandate which will effectively facilitate an international stabilization force aimed at enforcing the next stage of President Trump's 21-point plan for the Gaza Strip.
We have a new draft, I think, that's being worked on now. We feel optimistic that it's going to happen. It needs to be done the right way, and obviously there's a lot of different countries you have to balance their interests here and how that's structured, beyond just the security force. So I think we're making good progress on the language of the resolution, and hopefully we'll have action on it very soon. We don't want to lose momentum on this.
What should its role be? Do you foresee it as potentially a fighting force, that it may have to be involved in raids against Hamas remnants or militants?
Well, it shouldn't be a fighting force, but I mean, it shouldn't have to be, because the agreement that was signed and that all parties agreed to calls for the demilitarization of Hamas. So, but I think the question is, who's going to be standing on that line and beyond it to provide security? Because you're going to need security if you want to really flood Gaza, particularly in that red area that's not in Israeli control. If you really want to see a huge uptick, not just in humanitarian assistance, but redevelopment, you're going to need to have security. And that can't be Hamas. So there'll have to be a force that provides just basic everyday security. That's, as much as anything else, what the stabilization force's role is to stabilize. As far as demilitarization is concerned, that's a commitment Hamas made. That's a commitment all of our partners on this deal made. And we expect that those countries, and they will at the appropriate time, including now, bring about pressure, on Hamas to live up to that commitment.
It is important to highlight that in contrast to Secretary Rubio's voiced hope, Israeli officials confirmed that no country has yet offered to join the International Stabilization Force that is to be deployed in the Gaza Strip to keep the peace. Consequently, and irrespective of efforts to prepare for the so-called Phase 2 of President Trump's 21-point plan, Israeli and American officials have been working separately on a Plan B for the Gaza Strip in the event that President Trump's plan should fail. Meanwhile, in Ankara, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan hosted his Egyptian counterpart, Hamid Abdelati, during the course of which Turkey's top diplomat insisted that the Islamist Hamas is demonstrating its willingness to take constructive steps towards making the ceasefire permanent.
Hamas is demonstrating its willingness to take constructive steps toward making the ceasefire permanent. The same understanding must also be shown by the Israeli side.
It's worth to point out that Minister Fidan failed to note that the Islamist Hamas, which continues to commit extrajudicial killings of Gazan civilians that oppose its rule, systemically steals humanitarian aid that enters into the Gaza Strip and resells those commodities to the Gazan civilians with a surplus. Moreover, the Palestinian terror group, which is supported by both Ankara and Doha, continues to reject its disarmament, despite assurances by Turkey and Qatar that Hamas would ultimately disarm. Nevertheless, Ankara and Doha are using the tools at their disposal to include media arms to disseminate disinformation into the Western public sphere. Separately, the Turkish foreign minister also took the opportunity to address his recent visit to Washington, where he had the opportunity to join the meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Syria's de facto leader in Damascus, Ahmed al-Shara.
Our meetings at the White House were quite productive. We had the opportunity to attend part of the discussions between President Donald Trump and President Ahmed al-Shara. There, we were able, in particular, to clearly lay out Turkey's position on critical issues in Syria.
More on the topic of Syria, U.S. Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, while attending a G7 foreign ministerial meeting in Canada, insisted that unless the United States grants the former al-Qaeda and Islamic State terrorists a chance in taking over Syria as a whole, the country may plunge into renewed civil war.
Look, we want to give these guys every chance to succeed. They told us what they want to do is create a national Syrian government in which every element of Syrian society is represented and feels safe. They don't want Syria to ever again be a base of operations for Iran, for ISIS, or for any of these groups. They want it to be a country, not a launching pad for attacks against their neighbors. And so we want to give them every chance to succeed in that regard. The alternative is that if it doesn't work, if this doesn't happen and it collapses, then the alternative is going to be that Syria will fall into civil war and it'll become a playground for virtually every dangerous element in the Middle East, and including a return of Iran, and it'll even strengthen Hezbollah. So we don't want to see that happen. So this is the best option on the table to prevent that from happening. So we want to give these guys every chance to succeed. We hope that they do. No one can guarantee that it will, that what the task they're taking on is very difficult. That includes, there are parts, some of the elements that helped the current government come to power and drive Assad out are foreign fighters. Some of them that helped them are people that have some pretty radical views, and they're not all entirely under the control of the government in Damascus. There are issues with the Kurds in the north. There are issues with Bedouin and Druze in the south. So there's concerns that Israel has about its own security. All these things have to be balanced. So it's a tough task, but I ask everybody the alternative. The alternative, if this fails, let's say that this government project fails either because they make it fail or because they're just not successful, then what you're going to see is Syria fall into total civil war, and it'll just become an ungoverned space and a playground for ISIS, for Hezbollah, for Iran, for al-Qaeda, for every dangerous element in the region, and we'll have a whole new war on our hands.
It is worth noting that while visiting Washington, Ahmed al-Shara, also known by his al-Qaeda alias Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, stressed during an interview on Fox News that his past affiliation to al-Qaeda was not discussed in his meetings with President Trump.
Has President Trump raised with you, discussed with you, your own past affiliation with al-Qaeda terrorism?
I think this is a matter of the past now. We did not discuss this actively.
It is crucial to note that while the de facto ruler of Damascus was received into the Oval Office with open arms, his forces are effectively besieging the southern governorate of Sueda, frustrating the flow of humanitarian aid into the territory that is populated by Druze and Christian minorities who reject Damascus's sovereignty. Then, after facing a brutal massacre in the month of July that claimed the lives of over 2,000 people, wounded over 7,000 others, and with over 400 kidnapped, including over 120 women who are still being held captive to date. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to start by voicing my gratitude to you and those who are supporting TV7 Israel, since your donation is essentially helping us produce our daily news updates from here in Jerusalem. If you haven't yet supported TV7 Israel, please consider doing so, since TV7 Israel is exclusively donation-based. Your donation can be made via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, as ever, please pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, along with prayers for the peace of Jerusalem and the redemption of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.